Welcome to Global Village TV show. We are very honored to have two great people today. We have Kelly Rasmussen and Rexford, Asiamah. Welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kelly?
Sure. My name's Kelly Rasmussen. I'm a realtor in Brooks for the last 8 years. Prior to being a realtor, I had a full career in banking, and I also worked in the oil patch close to Brooks, Alberta. And the entire time of my adult career, I've also been a reserve officer in the Canadian Armed Forces, where I focus mostly working with cadets. And so I work really closely with the Air Cadet program in Brooks here. In my spare time, I volunteer with Air Cadets. I'm also on the Economic Development and the New Grow program. And most recently, I was a member of the Lake Newell Pathway Committee. I live at Lake Newell with my wife, Gina, and our two sons that are both just about high school age.
There you go. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Rexford.
Yeah. So my name is Rexford Asiamah. I've actually lived in Brooks for the past 10 years with my 3 daughters and my wife. I've been in the hospitality industry for 20 years.
Wow.
Yes, 20 years in the hospitality industry. I currently run a property in town. I'm fairly new to as a realtor, fairly new in this industry, but I have a lot of ideas about it.
Yeah, you've been working with people for a long time, so it's good.
Yeah, so you've been here in Brooks about
10 years, but I grew up in Toronto.
Oh, you grew up in Toronto?
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved from Ontario?
I moved to Ontario here.
Oh, okay, wow. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and what do you do in the community?
My career?
Yeah.
So I've been a realtor for about 8 years. I do focus on residential real estate. In Alberta, as a realtor, you need a specific license to work in different sectors of the industry. So I've chosen to focus on residential realtor. As a lender, I did have a background in commercial and agricultural lending as well, which has a good, it's a good knowledge base for me, and it does come in handy. But I do focus mostly on residential real estate, and again, I've been doing that for about 8 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what do you do in the community other than?
Again, I work with Air Cadets on a consistent basis. I've been involved in the cadet program for 33 years.
Wow.
I've been really fortunate. Anywhere that I went, there was always cadets that I was able to work with. And then through the years, I've also been involved in charities and programs where my children were at. So I've been a scout leader. My wife was on the Brooks Toy Library program, and she's also very active with the school boards and the parent committees and things like that where our children go to school.
And you are also involved with the pathways?
And most recently, I had an active role in the Lake Newell Pathway Committee, and we are very, very close to having a pathway tying the community of Lake Newell Resort into Brooks, which I'm really looking forward to ensuring that safety for people.
And why that pathway is important to them?
The road going out there is actually quite narrow. It's also a health and fitness.
Yeah.
I believe it also will bring people together. It's a great asset in communities, and it's kind of the way of the future where a lot of communities are able to tie in and keep people off of the road, whether they're walking or cycling or even with the advent of e-bikes. That'll be a great asset for people.
Well, that's fantastic, Kelly. Okay, Rexford, can you tell us the same about your career and any other things that you do in the community?
Oh, yes, certainly. Like I said, I've actually worked in the hospitality industry for 20 years. As a hotelier, I can tell you pretty much a lot about what the hotel industry is all about. And I'm fairly new in the real estate industry as well as a realtor, but I have a lot of good background in terms of my brokerage and seasoned veterans that are actually behind me to make sure that everything that I do is actually on par as well. In terms of the hospitality per se, I do meet a lot of new immigrants or newcomers that stay at the my property. I currently have give and take about 10 rooms for these newcomers, and what they do is they utilize me as more of their direction person, because most of them can relate to me per se. So I'm there to kind of assist them in every aspect, from where they can find groceries, and if they need somebody kind of talk to in different languages, I'm there to kind of assist them in finding them somebody to kind of help them. Most of the time, I'm always at different functions pertaining to the community. I used to sit on the NRTA board for 2 years until I got busy in the hotel industry, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to put it down and just focus more, because due to turnover ratio in terms of the a number of employees that you can have, so I had to kind of just put it on the side.
And why you choose to come to Brooks from Ontario?
Oh, when I came to Brooks, I didn't know anything about Alberta. All along, I wanted to move to Alberta. And the opportunity came, I think it came about 3 different times. And my wife says, you know what, this is the right time for you to go. And I said, you know what, sure, I will go. So I first lived in Calgary for about 1 year and 3 months. And then we moved to Brooks. So I ran a property for some years. And then over time, I actually end up owning that particular property in town. So and it's nice to. The reason why I like Brooks overall is because of the community. It's very diverse. It's very I'll say quiet compared to how Ontario or Calgary is per se. Because when I moved from Ontario to Calgary, I thought, Calgary is very, very quiet. But then I moved to Brooks and it's like, it's even quieter and less pollution. It's a very great place to raise your family, and everybody that you meet you can relate to them, and they make you feel at home. And it's one of the great things about the city of Brooks.
Wow, that's good. I think that's something that Mayor John and councillors will love to hear. Yeah. So, Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about the housing and the process of buying a house in the region?
Absolutely. So there's some steps that people will take as far as being able to, for residential home, things that you should do first to buy a house. And I probably refer that to Rexford, I think. There's about 3 things that are super important for a person to do in advance. And once they've reached that decision where they need to be able to start looking for a home.
Right. So essentially what you got to do, right? You need to make sure that you have the professional on your side. You need to call one of us, the realtor. You need to make sure that you have somebody who can actually assist you every step of the way, so they can help you buy the property with confidence. It's very, very important. So you give one of us a call, and when you give one of us a call, the most important thing that we're going to tell you is, are you pre-qualified? Because you need to go. We can send you to find a lender or go to your bank so that you know how much you are pre-qualified. So we can then you come back and see us. Then we can search, find you a property based on how much you are qualified for. Also, we all have different in terms of what we want for our homes, right? Based on your age, the demographic, locations, and the amenities as well, right? So then we are going to go out there, find a property that tailored to what your needs are, and we will show you until we find something that actually meets your needs. And most of the time we do.
Yeah, I think it's not uncommon. Sometimes we'll work with someone for a long time. Mm-hmm. If we're lucky, we would find a house on the first day. Wow. But at the same time, in general, it often takes 8, 10, 15 times for us to go out and find something. Because it's not what we like. Mm-hmm. It's being able to find something that you like and what you need, as opposed to what is maybe currently available. I have clients I've worked successfully with but it took us a year to find a home that met their needs, right? And that's where developing that relationship with a realtor makes a real difference. That they aren't shopping for what they want you to buy. It's shopping for what you want and what meets your needs.
Wow. And let me just add a little bit to it. Because as your realtor, think of it this way. You are pretty much, I'm your tour guide. I'm your counselor. I'm your advisor for the next 3 months or so until we find you the property. So
For one of the biggest financial decisions of
yes.
your life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you, like I said, you need to make sure you have the professional on your side, and it's absolute master.
Wow. So, but you still have to, the client have to know their budget, whether they want to buy a house of 500
Right.
Of course.
or 1 million or 200.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that pre-qualification that he was talking about, where one of the most important first steps is establishing what your budget is based on what payments work for you and what's available in the community. So that pre-qualification lets us know where we should be looking. Right? So that we're not wasting the client's time looking at houses that don't meet their needs or don't fall within their payment ability.
And one of the things is that I think most people get pre-qualification confused, because I had a guy one time who said to me, "Oh, just go and look for a house for me." And I said, "Are you pre-qualified?" No, right? Because that's the thing. We don't want to waste your time, because your time is precious, right? Because it's about booking appointment and taking you around. So we want to make sure that we actually hitting your goal. Pretty much, that's what it is. We want to make sure that we hit your target, right? So it's always a good idea to get pre-qualified, and then we will take it from there. Because if you are pre-qualified for 300,000, we can go and look for a house for 500,000, right? And vice versa, right? So it's a way of us kind of knowing what your capacity is.
Okay. So otherwise, you're wasting his time and your time if he doesn't have the pre-qualified.
And it's also, you need to be kind of mission focused.
Yeah.
That, if they're taking time out of their day to look for a home, we want to make sure that we're looking in the right areas, because in the long run, that they're going to get what they want and what they need, as opposed to spending a lot of time looking at things that are not within their realm. And that can be quite frustrating for a buyer.
You also don't want to disappoint your buyer, because they've hired you they entrust you as
their advisor.
As your advisor, right? So, for example, if I go and I show you houses that are 600,000, and you go to the bank later on, you realize, oh, geez, I can only buy 200,000 home. Now you feel very deflated. You feel I didn't do my job as a realtor, right? And that's something that is very, very important. We want to make sure we do our job very well, so that we will put you in your dream home that you actually
as you very well know, both of you, financial literacy is extremely important, especially when it comes to the newcomers. Also local people. Financial literacy is very complicated. And that is where someone new to the country can make a mistake. As a bank manager, a former bank manager, Kelly, who have seen a lot of financial management and all that, what would a bad credit looks like and good credit?
Well, and you're right. Financial literacy is super important, and it's not isolated or exclusive to people that are new to Canada. A lot of people get into trouble or fail to set themselves up for success, because it's almost the same thing. Sometimes people have poor credit history, and sometimes people also have to overcome no credit history. That's also really important to be able to establish that. So your credit history is basically where you've established a record of good business, where people have looked after their financial commitments and made sure they paid them on time and made sure they used them in a responsible way, so that when you need larger forms of credit, because usually establishment of credit starts with a credit card. That's usually where people will start out, and that's usually where they run into problems immediately. Is the easy credit, the easy car loans, the easy furniture loans, or the credit cards, which are very, very high interest. People get into trouble, and there's a record of that. And if you have a record of not looking after your commitments when you want to go buy a home that might be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's one of the reasons we take our job so seriously, is because we're helping people make the largest financial decision of their life. But to be able to make that decision, they need to have an establishment of good repayment history and good financial management in the past. So if you have a client that either has a car loan or a credit card that they don't pay on a regular timeline, or even if they have establishment of credit, such as a credit card, if you have a credit card with a $5,000 limit and you are always at the top of that limit without properly paying it down, that will inhibit your ability to borrow down the road. If you have a credit card with a limit, if you're well within your limit and you pay your credit card off often and on a regular basis, you will establish a history of repayment. There's a company out there, and the one that we see most common in lending is called Equifax. And their job is to keep track of you. And they know the color of your socks as you sit in the chair. They know every loan you've ever had. They know your repayment history. They know whether or not you've paid your cell phone bill on time. They know whether or not you've paid your utility bills on time. Any long-term financial commitment is now reporting back to Equifax what your history is. And they assign a numerical score to that. And so there's companies out there that people will access that will give them a good indication of what their credit history is, such as Credit Karma is something that's online, and there's a few different services, and there's nothing wrong with those. But one of the things to really indicate is it'll give you an idea of how good your credit is. But sometimes people will even abuse that, and they'll check their Credit Karma score every week or twice a week. And that in time actually will impair your credit rating as well. It's called credit-seeking behavior. So if you use one of those services, that's fine. You'll get a good indication of a number. For example, if I was still working for a bank, good credit, acceptable credit would be a score of at least 650. Anything up from there, it improves. So the highest score I think I ever saw was about 845, 850. Is a very, very good credit score. Oh. Anyone under 650 needed branch manager approval to be approved transactions. Anyone below 600 wasn't allowed to have any form of credit because you have a repeated history of not making your commitments. So, and you can repair that, right? It is possible to fix your credit, get back on track, start making your payments on time, make up for lost payments. And the other thing to do is make sure that if you do have limit credit, such as a credit card or a line of credit, make sure you're not at the top of it all the time. Get it paid down. If you have a $5,000 limit, try and, the idea is the limit is the maximum. The maximums always get people into trouble. So, for instance, myself, my wife was also a banker for many years, very, very capable. And so we pay our credit cards off twice a month, not once a month. That way it avoids interest rates. Interest penalties, things like that. But we do use our credit cards extensively, but with intent. So.
Wow. So would someone not able to pay their utilities, for example, or a telephone bill, would that affect also their credit?
Yes. So quite often the utility companies, the power company, the gas company, and telephones for sure. Most people that get into a bind with their telephone company is where not just your telephone bill, but it's actually what happens is they go buy a new phone, and they buy a new phone with zero down, but it's on a payment plan. And now you have a 4-year contract with that telephone to pay for the device. And you might only be paying $35 a month or whatever it is. But if you then decide, I don't want that phone anymore because iPhone came out with a new phone, so you want that, and you tell the old people to go away and you switch over to another company, you still have to make that. You made a financial contract and a commitment. If you don't, it will go to collections and that will impair your credit. Wow. So it's possible that you would have, an unpaid phone bill from 3 years ago that would, even if you had a good job and all the criteria for a mortgage, where all of a sudden you were unable to obtain a mortgage. Wow. Because of a cell phone bill from several years ago.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask something just a little bit small. So sometimes a lot of things that we see in the industry is that when people are pre-approved and for mortgage and all of that, and you go and look for something, so we're in the process of trying to have the offer and all of that, then they go and they just buy a new truck. Right?
It also impairs people's ability to borrow. Changing your borrowing profile while you're in the process of looking for a house.
Wow.
So we could talk about that down, in time.
Yeah.
There's 5 things that a
Yes.
bank will look for
Yeah.
to be able to qualify for a mortgage. A mortgage is a very, very specific type of loan.
Yeah.
There are loans out there that you see advertisement where everybody qualifies. Nobody's turned away when you're buying a car, or everybody's approved when you're applying for a credit card. Mortgages are very, very specific. It's actually governed by the Mortgage Act, and there's very specific criteria that everyone must meet to ensure the stability of the housing market in Canada. Mortgages are said to be, are classified as the most solid and secure type of lending. It's very, very stable. Banks will not fail based on mortgages. So that's why the criteria is very strong. So there's 5 things that are needed in any bank. They all use the same criteria to qualify for a mortgage. Some banks may have specific criteria that is in addition to the things I'm going to talk about, but those are their banking policies, not the law. So one of the first things that a person needs to be able to buy a house in Canada is you have to have a down payment. And a down payment is your portion of the loan that you have paid, and then you've borrowed the remaining portion. Most people, when you start out lending and borrowing, they'll need at least 5% down. 5% down is considered the minimum amount to borrow to buy a house. There are programs in place that you can have 0% down to buy a house, but they are very complicated. I don't not recommend them. It's just that they're quite stringent, because what happens is the government becomes a partner in your home. So they have an equity portion of your home if you have no money down. But it does work, and it is something for some people to look at. There is a possibility of no money down. Most people start out with 5%. The more money you put down against your home, the better off you are. You're borrowing less, you have less interest costs, and there's less fees associated with that. But we'll start out by saying genuinely 5% down is usually your best bet. After that, you also need employment history. And part of employment history is your ability to pay. So most people, if you are new to a job, you would have to be on the job usually for about 6 to 8 months before you qualify for lending. Sometimes people will get a new job, and as long as it's considered within the same industry. So let's say I worked at a grocery store I was a produce manager, and I moved to another town and still worked as a produce manager at the grocery store. They would probably treat that as the same type of employment. Maybe even I got promoted, went from one store, one town to another town, and I moved up. So they would allow that and say, well, it was the same industry, you're okay, right? As opposed to if I was the produce manager at the grocery store and then started his apprenticeship as a mechanic, the lender might say, we need you to be in the job for 6 to 8 months to make sure you're stable in your job, right? If you switched industries. But within that employment and your ability to make payments is you want to make sure that no more than 42% of your income goes towards the service of debt. So that would be your new mortgage amount and any other loans that you might have, your credit card, your student loans, any other long-term financial commitment that you may have, lines of credit. No more than 42 cents of every dollar you make can go towards the service of debt. And it's really, really important to make sure, because at the end of the day, if you think about if someone took 42 cents out of every dollar you had, you still haven't paid tax, you haven't bought any gas yet, you haven't bought any groceries yet. So we need to make sure that there's money for the family to prosper. Oh. And so there's a limit. We all have a limit to how much we can borrow, which ties together with what Rexford said before, that if you're out looking for a house, do yourself a favor, don't go buy a new car until after you've bought your home and you know how much money is available to make that payment. Because a lot of times people will go out and a new vehicle right now is quite expensive, and it's easy to come home with a $900 or $1,000 car payment, which all of a sudden makes it very, very difficult to buy a house, right? So we talked about the amount of down payment. We talked about the ability to make payments. Credit history is super important. Somebody on a mortgage, if you have a dual mortgage, the more money that comes in and income in a household, the more you can qualify to borrow. So if you have both a husband and wife working, both of them can go on the mortgage on title, and that makes it easier to buy a home. And one of them must have very positive credit. So we need to have somebody on the loan that has at least a credit score of about 650. So that's where, again, when Rexford brought up the pre-qualifications, then you know if you have a problem with your credit, you can take steps to fix it rather than having it all fall apart. So now after we've talked about credit score, then we also need to talk about the closing costs. So closing costs are hard costs you cannot borrow for. So that's the price of your lawyer, possibly any utility connections that you may need, property taxes that might be outstanding on the property once you own it, and then the very last thing is a home inspection. And so a home inspection is really not required, but it's a really good idea. I'm a strong proponent of home inspections. We could do a whole show on that, but making sure that a home inspector will never tell you to buy or not buy a property, but what a home inspector does do is ensure that you're fully aware of what you're buying, so that if a home needs work, at least you knew going into it. You're well aware of what you're buying to the best of his ability. And so those are the closing costs. And then the very, very final thing that a bank needs is the bank actually has to like the house. So you can go in and you can get your pre-approval and know exactly whether or not you're going to qualify for a mortgage, which is a great thing. And then at the end of the day, a mortgage is specific to a property. So you would go out, we would be able to show you houses, we would be able to find the home that suits you best. If we're successful in making an offer and a contract on it, it would be subject to the bank approving your financing. And part of the bank approving the financing is they have to like the house. So what I tell people often is that there's some banks with policies, there's houses they don't like. There's banks that won't finance a home that has certain building materials in it. There's banks that won't finance a home that's outside of the city, or a mobile, or an acreage, or that's where we get into specific banking policy. So, and quite often they'll also do an appraisal to make sure the home is within the value range of what you're paying for it. And the bank will be kind and say that they're making sure that you're not paying too much for the home, but they're also valuing the security of it so that if you don't make the payments, they know they're going to get their money back.
So it's going to be the appraisal of the bank or the individual?
It depends on the bank. A lot of appraisals now are included in financing, but at the same time, we've been fortunate. I would say less than half of the homes that I've worked with in the last year have even needed an appraisal. Because they'll do what's called a statistical analysis of a property. And Brooks, we are very, very blessed that Brooks has lower purchase price averages than all of our neighboring communities. It is still great value in Brooks to buy a home, and you can buy a home much, much cheaper than you can build one in Brooks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good tool.
If you look back through the averages, so if I have a number of people that we've worked with recently that come from British Columbia or Ontario. Anyone moving from Vancouver, average home price $1.15 million. Average home price in Brooks $285,000. So we have people that are relocating from other communities because it is so much cheaper to live here and to get ahead. I have a good friend now as a client that recently moved to Brooks. They sold their home in Langley and were able to basically put money away and retire 4 years earlier than they had anticipated, just based on the fact that they sold their home in another community, were able to put money in the bank and buy a house here for a third of the value of their home where they were coming from.
Wow.
So it's a great advantage for people. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a gentleman that who moved from Ontario, bought a house here, retirement house. So, and I was just wondering, and I thought, people retirement, they go to Florida. They say, no, this is my Florida. I bought a house here. So.
Yeah, it could be the same idea. But we also, now we're going to talk about the community then, because I always tell everyone that Brooks has everything you need. Everything. Doesn't have everything you want. If you want to go to the opera, you're going to have to leave town.
Yeah.
But we have grocery stores, dentists, doctors, facilities, emergency services, safe community, schools, secondary education, recreational facilities. We have the seasons. We have everything you need. But sometimes we leave town for the things that we want. I like to ski. I have to leave town if I want to go skiing.
Yeah.
But I don't have to go far. So
I have to go to Dubai. I have to go to Calgary airport to fly out of Calgary.
Right.
and that's about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing like you're flying out of Pearson Airport in Ontario, Toronto. You're going to be, driving for about 2 hours
At least.
because of the traffic.
Yeah, just for traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, for traffic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Same thing with Calgary. Small, it's not small. So Calgary is getting big. So you have to be driving on the highway, and that would be a traffic jam. So there's a huge advantage of small town.
Absolutely.
And Kelly, I think we've actually dealt with a few customers per se that are looking towards relocating to Brooks based on how much their property is worth in Ontario, for example. So they just want to relocate to somewhere like Brooks, because if your property is worth 1.5 million in Ontario, you come here, you can get something nice for what, 650, 700, and that's pretty much equivalent to the same property that you had in Ontario, and maybe it's even better view, the lake.
Yeah.
Right?
Lake Newell.
Yeah, Lake Newell, right? And then guess what? You still have enough savings left to travel around the
To
world.
travel and enjoy your life.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an Alberta advantage too that I'm sure has been discussed on other shows, where a community like Brooks, we have high quality healthcare here, and always expanding services and things like that as well. We have a new imager and things like that. So there's additional services that are coming to town. And lower taxes even. So we have people that have moved from Ontario and moved from British Columbia have an experience that we don't have a provincial sales tax, and we have lower taxation even in income tax. And as a result, our utilities are less, and purchasing of major items are less. So there's a lot of advantages to living in a small town. And Brooks is right on the cusp of having all the advantages of a small town and a lot of the amenities of a larger city as well.
Yeah. So the question is now in then why housing is everywhere in Canada. Housing is an issue now. We have a housing crisis. Brooks is on count of Newell the same. So how would that, and the housing affects also people coming to the area,
Yes.
because if you don't have any place to live, then you have a problem.
It's very, very difficult. So Brooks is not unique in the fact that we are short of housing.
Yeah.
Although I would actually go so far as to say sometimes we're even shorter of housing than other communities. One of the reasons is that there hasn't been a lot of building in Brooks. So this is more, not a political statement, but it's something that we need to try and address in some capacity. That in 2017 and 2018, the oil went down, and the industry itself was really, really affected. The industry was so far affected that I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you lose your very, very, very good job in the oil field, you become a realtor.
Yeah.
So I was always involved in real estate, and it was a really good fit for me. But that changed the demand for housing in Brooks. So for about 2 years, we had very, very low demand. At the same time, or about that same time, there was government regulations that changed for builders. So the builders, new home warranty is usually required on a new home. So if you were to go build a new home, you want to have some form of assurance or guarantee that it is a quality product that you're getting, that you're going to be paying for the next 25 years. The majority of our builders left town. We had what I would call boutique builders in town in Brooks, and some of them were of exceptional quality, but they would only build 1 or 2 houses a year. And we had several different people that were doing that, or companies that were doing that. So right now, I believe we only have one company in town that is new home warranty approved. And they do build an exceptional quality product. However, they tend to focus on the high-end housing market, specialty build. So we don't have any developers. There's no one coming to Brooks and building 10 houses in a row for economies of scale to be able to deliver a cost-effective product. What we have is we have builders or specific people that are building houses that are one-off, generally a little bit more expensive on the higher end. And so there are, in the last 5 years, I can only think of 4 houses that have been built in a city of 13,000 people. Wow. So we're very, very low in new construction. There have been several projects that have come up that were not for resale, that were built by an individual. There's a few houses going out at Lake Newell that are going to be wonderful, but they're not made for resale. So they're not addressing a problem of someone that's moving to town and saying, oh, I need a home. They're being built by someone for themselves. So in the long run, we need to address that. And I'm not smart enough to know the solution to say, well, how can we get someone to come into Brooks and build 10, 15, 20 houses at once and then do it again and do it again? Because in my opinion, we're probably short, I would say easily you could build about 100 homes in the next 3 years, and they would easily be filled. We have about, from JBS, we have about 100 people a month move to Brooks, and we don't know where they go. A lot of times they land, they have temporary accommodations, and then they find their communities, whether it's ethnic, whether it's through their churches, whether it's through their cultures, and they wind up, living under the stairs in their friend's house because there's nowhere to go.
Wow.
So, but despite the fact that we do have a vibrant housing and reasonable costs, but right now in Brooks with the housing shortage, we have 27 homes were listed for sale this morning in Brooks. A year ago there was over 85 on the same day, and the year before that there was over 100 on the same day. So what we've seen is less and less houses are coming available because Brooks has really good value in homes. If I sold my house here for $300,000 so that I can move to Calgary, a comparable home in Calgary is over $600,000.
Wow.
So it's hard to move away, right? So the advantage works for us and the advantage works against us. So right now it's a matter of low inventory that really can only be addressed by large scale investment having a developer come in and build homes. And I'd love to partner with somebody on that.
Yeah, I think you nailed you hit the nail on the head. We had also, I believe yesterday we had a Newell housing, and we had also the Brooks housing. So with your invaluable experience, getting together, I think will probably produce some sort of ideas of how to attract the developer here, because they had also their own challenges when it comes to the housing issue. The mayor was talking to the attainable buildings or housing versus affordable housing. But I think getting together the stakeholders probably might be a great idea to brainstorm going forward.
And I agree, because one of the things with affordable housing is that if people were able to purchase homes, if they were available, they would be able, it's called the move-up strategy, where people would be able to buy their own home, and then that would free up and allow for capacity within the societies like Newell Housing and Brooks Housing, because they're rental agencies and they do great work, but they're full to capacity, and I'm sure they have waiting lists as well. So, they're not in the ability to expand their offerings, because the idea is that through Newell Housing and that is that they're a rental capacity that ultimately people would be able to buy their own home, and they would be able to bring in another person and establish them. So if we were able to get development in town, that would free up the affordable homes, in my opinion.
I see. Wow. Yeah, so that is where, the having a stakeholders and discuss and brainstorm, I think might be beneficial. But it's a housing issue affects also the retention, attracting employers or labor force into this area.
Absolutely, yeah. There's numerous, JBS is a major supporter and also a provider of employment, but the smaller businesses, I have a good friend that owns an air conditioning and plumbing company where he hasn't been able to hire people because once they get here, they have nowhere to live. And that is a technical and a highly paid job. And he's had numerous people come and be hired and come and live here for a while, and they're just unable to do it. Even some of our physicians, we've had great physicians that have come to town that wind up really stressed for where am I going to house my family? Because even a physician, when they come to town, need to be here for a period of time before they qualify for financing, because a lot of our physicians are coming from other nations. They get their equivalency and they come to work in Canada. So they need to work for at least 8 months, 10 months to qualify for financing. And also, some of them might even have essentially no credit history because their credit history is from Europe or from the other side of the world. So they need to come to Canada, establish credit history, establish job history, and then they will be able to buy a house a year to a year and a half from now. And so they have a really hard time with our zero rental availability. And they're not looking for, your average rental. They may be looking for something that's a little bit more premium.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit to the accommodation sector, for example, with the hotel motel industry, for example, we've had newcomers in the staying at the motel or hotel for almost 2 months. And I think the government is still trying to find them somewhere for them to live, right? And there hasn't been anything. So as a result, the accommodation sector, when it comes to the hotel motel, is somewhat full. And then you also have projects going on in Brooks, and we need to make sure that we have accommodation for workers and as such, which sometimes could be very, very tedious at times, right? So it would be nice to have developers
Increase capacity.
Yeah, just a quick to follow up about the credit rating, which is extremely important for most of the everyone, but especially for the newcomers. The student loan, would that also affect your credit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you have a long-term financial commitment and you don't maintain it, it's going to have an effect on your credit rating. Student loans are generally quite favorable. They're low interest. But what happens is when you fail to maintain the commitment, they'll go to collections quickly. So it is one of those things that you need to always maintain because it will come back. And anything that shows as a negative on your credit history comes quickly and leaves slowly. So it takes a long time, sometimes up to 2 years or more, to be able to overcome a bad mark on a negative report.
So the most important is just to make sure that your financial commitment.
Maintain your financial commitments and stay within them because it's easy a lot of forms of credit are easy to get, but not necessarily for your benefit. The shiny car, I love shiny cars, but at the same time, I would rather have a roof.
There you go. Yeah. Brand new car today is very expensive. And you won't be able to sleep inside that car.
Or maybe that's all you'll sleep in.
There you go.
Which is not what we want. That doesn't build community.
No, that's true indeed. And the final question that I have for both of you is number one: what motivates you?
What motivates me? That's a very good question. What motivates me is my family and my job. I love my family so much, and the fact that I'm able to also help guests in terms of the accommodation sector, and also help people purchase the most expensive purchase that they will make in their life, right? Helping them, making sure that my footprint is there, right? My fingerprint is on all of these things, and the satisfaction that gives you when the person goes, yes, this is what I want. It just gives you a joy, or you put a soul on the lawn. It just gives you so much joy, and it's compared to nothing, right?
That's fantastic. What motivates you?
Motivates me? I would say the same thing. It's really, really similar in family. So I work to set an example for my kids. My wife and I are very active in the community. We like to see the success of others. There is a portion I like to succeed on my own as well. We all work with purpose, but I'm really, really fortunate to work in an industry where I'm able to share the success with other people. With my youth programs that I've worked with through the years is always being able to watch young people develop and become better than what they were, which is really satisfactory. In the real estate industry, you become part of the family for that period of time. You're trusted, you're in their home. I have lots of examples of people that I've helped through the years where people came back and went, you helped us at our best time. You were able to show us the way. We never thought home ownership was a possibility. And I was able to participate with those people. And that's not cultural, that's universal.
Yeah.
And I also believe that owning a home is very important financially, and it's also very important. It's a Canadian way of life. And a lot of people that come from other nations come to be part of Canada.
Yeah.
One of the reasons they come here is for the dream of home ownership, because where they're from, it was never obtainable. And generationally, you're setting people up for success in the long run, and you're a solution provider. And so there's great joy in that.
That's well said. And as we are approaching the Christmas and holidays, what message do you have for the youth who wants to achieve their potential and success, knowing that with your wisdom, both of you, it's tough for sometimes your dreams and your potential that you think that you want to reach, and there are always obstacles, there are always setbacks. What message would you like to give a youth who is yearning to reach their potential? Either they graduate from the high school or they graduated last year and they still not sure what they want to do in life, just a little bit afraid of the failure if they move to one direction.
That's a deep question.
Yeah,
That's not real estate.
I know. that comes with your wisdom.
There's a lot of Kellyisms in my life because I work with the youth a lot. And one of the first things I say is often, it's really, really cheesy, and it's, you got to listen to your mother. Moms know, and moms always want to do what's best for you. And somewhere in there, you can find your way. Sometimes there are a lot of setbacks in life, and it's more about how resilient you are coming back from it. We all have a gift, and sometimes we don't know what our gifts are just yet. Yeah. And it is okay to coast. Quite often I deal with youth that are not misguided, but they just don't know where they want to go yet. And a big thing that I've talked to my own children about is that it's okay to coast as long as you admit it. And that can mean getting a job that may not last forever, may not be your career, but you need to be productive and you need to add to society and you need to better yourself. And if you're doing that by taking a job that maybe necessarily isn't your career just yet, it can be an adventure. You can go out and find something that's not your forever job, as long as you admit it to yourself and say, well, I'm going to try this for a while. Great. But do something, because sitting in your basement doing this is not going to get you far. I know very, very few people that have ever made a living doing this. So get out, better yourself, listen to your mom, and you'll be all right.
And failure is not.
Failure is ultimate. It's evident. It's going to be part of it.
It's part of the growth. And I believe you don't fail, you don't grow, right? Yeah. And never give up. It's very, very important. And when you have a goal, you just need to stick to it. I'm a product of that. I actually came from Ghana at a very young age, grew up in Toronto, moved to Alberta. I own a property, motel, right? And I'm also a realtor. Right? It's a dream, and it all starts from the mind, and then over time you pursue that, right? So you don't give up, and like Kelly said, listen to your mom, parents.
Everything will be okay.
Everything will be fine. Yes, because
surround yourself with good people.
Right.
Like we're fortunate that Rexford and I are working together, and it's really important to find people of similar intent and integrity, and that'll set the path forward too.
And keep hope alive.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, always there is tomorrow will be better than today. Yeah. No, thank you very much, both of you. And I think this financial literacy is extremely important to the community, especially for the newcomers who are new to this country. And we never had any credit, bad credit, good credit. That's something new.
Exposure to the industry and the availability of easy credit is new as well, which is how people get into trouble.
Yeah, and housing is a huge issue for most of the newcomers. They want to own their own house. So this was an eye-opener for most of the community members. Definitely they will benefit on the comments that you have made about how to build your career and how to build your credit rating and all that, so you can own your own house. That's the dream of every newcomer comes to Canada.
Good. Rexford and I also, we put on a seminar every year in partnership with the city in the spring on a home buyer seminar. And it's not just us. We also bring in a lawyer. We also bring in often a lender or a home inspector. And that'll be coming up. It's free. We can certainly help direct people that.
Fantastic.
It's a dream.
Shoot me an email, and definitely we will also do that through our broadcast radio.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I think it will be fantastic. So they will be able to attend the spring. Is it April, May?
Even earlier.
Okay,
Yeah.
or March.
Yeah.
Okay.
More like March, April.
Okay. Yeah, let us know, and definitely that will be beneficial to the newcomers as well as the local population to benefit about. But thank you very much. Not only realtor, but also used to be bank manager. So with that, I think comes with the territory of financial literacy.
Yeah. Well, then, anytime. Welcome to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today to the program. Yeah, we always say
We'll do it.
cheers. Yeah,
There we go. There you go.
yeah.
Let me grab.
Thank you very much for watching us today. This is the end of the program. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you will join us next time. This is your host of the program, Ahmed Kassim, from the city of Brooks and Newell region. Please come and visit the region. It's a beautiful region, and you'll definitely experience the city of 100 Hollows and the county, which has the dinosaur, Lake Newell, and other places that you'll be able to visit, bring your family to. And the coffee is on us. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless you, and keep hope alive.